7 hours ahead, I believe. And so there, he's really nice guy, because there at the moment it's pretty flipping late at night. But I'm going to bring him on without further ado just before he falls asleep. So if I go rattling on anymore, he will fall asleep, as most people do. Right, let's get him on. Hello, how are you?
Hi. Yes. Nice to finally hook up, meet up, and discuss some of our or some of my research. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you today, Phil?
Well, do you know, it's kind of all right. You know, I'm okay. I'm all right. Just like kind of, because prior to this show, Charles was sending me images, so I was feverishly of what you got to do. You can get the images, but usually I like to load them up onto the studio.
Yeah.
But what I've had to do, I've done it another way, so I'm going to screen share it. Okay,
Okay.
Charles.
Fine.
All right,
Fine.
but we'll get them up there because they are some really interesting photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I, before we start on the thank you. Listen, I know how late it is over there, and I do appreciate it. You know,
This is my time. This is my research time. It's usually around this time between 10 and midnight. This is when I get when I seem to wake up and my intuition, and it's just a really good time for me. I think I've always been like I think the term is night owl, right? So I'm
yeah.
it's a really good time for me to focus on something. Yeah.
Do you know, it's a strange thing you saying that. I think a lot of creativity happens at night for some reason.
It does. Yeah. There's some
You know,
real esoteric things happening. Yeah, at night for
yeah,
people.
yeah. And I think
Yeah.
nighttime. I mean, for me anyway. I mean, usually nighttime is when my phone. Late at night is when my phone really starts pinging. You know, it falls off
Right.
the table pinging. You know, because a lot of people sort of like slumber until about early afternoon, and then they start getting up, and then the evening time it starts like kind of going guns. So I think a lot of people
Yep.
are like that, but you know, a lot of people that are also people that are interested in or questioning of the arcane, you know, which are more
I think it
nocturnal.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I've just
definitely
finished
a
a
connected, I
conversation.
think.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was just on a conversation last night until crikey knows how late with a lady who has been on a show, and I was talking to her for ages, and it was like all about basically the Bible and about disclosure, and you know, where we are at the moment with disclosure and what it means to us and all this other stuff, you know. Charles, how did
Yeah.
before we get into the mainstream of the Tartarian law and you know what it means to us and a few examples that way, um, were you always interested in history as a kid, or?
Yes. Yeah. I've always kind of enjoyed history. More geography, actually, interestingly enough. I felt very much drawn to history. I wanted to know everything. But I really enjoyed geography, and I was really good at like drawing as a kid. So I used to really enjoy like diagrams and getting things right, getting measurements right. I kind of enjoyed measurements, and I enjoyed mathematics, but I wouldn't say I was good at maths, but geography I seem to excel in. I decided not to go further into history when I was younger, and I think that kind of saved me from the misinformation. And I think a lot of children that maybe even have attention deficit disorder, I think that's just their higher self sort of stopping them because they know something isn't right. The frequency isn't right.
Mm,
Children respond very purely and directly to things, and I've seen that with my own like students that I've had over the years teaching English in Taiwan. So
yeah.
they are naturally drawn to, like, you can tell them three different things, three different facts, and you can experiment with this, and they will be naturally drawn to the most logical one almost immediately. It's like a subconscious thing. And I think for me, now going into history, whereas went into sciences, geography, and languages more
Mm.
when I was younger. It kind of helped me understand that there was never a set time for education. It's a lifelong journey. So, I didn't get a chance to study history. I had to choose, I think, one art, one language, and I could choose two sciences, but I couldn't choose all the sciences. So it's kind of weird education in the UK. You can only choose certain things to fill
Yeah.
up your quota. So you can have geography, which I had to do because I loved it, but I wasn't allowed to do history and geography because I then had to choose one language.
Right.
And I went very deep into studying German because I lived in Germany for 9 years. So
Uh-huh.
then I went into obviously learning Chinese, and now I'm trying to study Hebrew. So it's weird how we've separated history from geography. We shouldn't have. It's a mistake. Geography and history should be the same subject. Chemistry,
Mm.
physics should be the same subject. In fact, and chemistry, physics should be the same, and biology should also be included. Like separating those is such a mistake because I have a lot of interesting theories that I can go into later about
Mm.
why physics, chemistry, and geography, separating those is just the foundation for misinformation. It's the foundation for
Yeah.
miseducation. You're told to educate early on in life and then focus on one job, but that is the completely wrong way to do it. Because the full saying actually isn't um, uh, a jack of all trades, master of none. The full saying is actually jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than the master of one.
Mm.
So if you look at the entire like 1800s saying, which is obviously originally not even English, you suddenly realize it's the inverse every time. It's the inverse of what we think it means. We think jack of all trades means don't be good at everything, just focus on one thing and become an expert. But the actual saying is become an expert at everything. There's never a time to like stop educating yourself. It doesn't end at university or college or school or with your GCSE exams or your degree. It doesn't end there. Your
No.
brain actually functions much better the older you get because you get the left and the right side starting to connect. Again,
Mm.
something that nobody learns in the mainstream. So I've always been interested in kind of everything, but through school, you are brainwashed into thinking that you're supposed to focus on one topic.
Mm.
But the fact that everything's connected is something that's stolen from you when you're very young, and you have to rediscover that. So I think
Yeah.
that's the way it's happened with me personally. Yeah.
Interesting. You're quite right. I mean, I think with children anyway, they're especially boys. They're when they're younger, they share with girls. They share the ability of lateral thinking,
Right.
which they tend to lose as they get older. Because most guys, when they get older, do tend to overcomplicate a lot of things,
Mm.
and whereas women still keep, to a certain degree, quite a lot of lateral thinking. You know, they'll go for the most direct solution at all possible. Um,
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I mean, with schooling, do you know, I think, I mean, what is education? Education, you know, when you boil it down, it is a regurgitation of what you previously learned, or a methodology of formulation, which you have to remember to then kind of spew out, or remember in such a manner the formula, or remember in such a manner the way it was taught to you, so that you can then recite it at an exam. So at the end of the day, the free thinking isn't there because they've been indoctrinated with the knowledge prior. It's just a case of the retention of memory and the application of that memory when the time comes for the examination. So you're quite right that way. It's in a way, it would be much better to allow a bit more freedom of thought on an individual basis for each child. Teach them the basics by all means. Yes, of course, but also I think we've lost an awful lot in the way of allowing them to have free thought and formulate their own thesis and hypothesis on certain subjects themselves. Because schools nowadays, they're awarded more grant funding if they get more passes through. So in my opinion, the way teaching's done is basically like a conveyor belt. Teach them. Are they learning? Are they going to pass the exams? Great. Another lot comes. Are they learning? Yes, they are. Did they retain it? Are they going to pass the exams? Great. Another year. I know a little bit about it because my sister was a teacher. You see, she was head of English in a school in London for a long time. She's retired now. I kind of like know a little bit how the system works, and I like you. I don't fully agree with it, the way it is, because it's too indoctrinating, as a system of education, and too conveyor belt, as it were, for want of a better term. Interesting though, geography. I was never that good at geography. Still not really. I rely very heavily on Google Maps. It's so you're interested in geography. What was the catalyst moment when you decided, history is just not fitting in right? What was the moment that you decided, I'm going to dive a bit deeper into this?
Right. So, most of my life has been spent just accepting that there were historians who wrote history books and who created a narrative for us, a timeline, who described various figures that were intrinsic to pivotal changes in the narrative, and I wouldn't have thought ever that I would be of the sufficient intellect to challenge these people until 2020, when I started to research some missing history, or what people were saying was missing history. And I think I ended up online because I had to teach online every day. I couldn't go out to the private schools anymore. I couldn't visit my students at home. So I had to everything had to be online. So I became very good at online. I created my own online interactive games. I designed like backgrounds, and I started to get good at the green screen. Like all of the stuff that I'm using is pretty much, I was setting myself up to teach online because that was necessary during the lockdowns. Here in East Asia, the lockdowns happened, I think, a little bit later, and they were a little bit shorter. But it was still a good 3 months of like having to teach online, and then a break. The kids came back to the classroom, and then we had another period of a few months. So I became so good at it that I thought, well, I don't like teaching online because the students are constantly turning their microphones off, pretending they have technical difficulties when they don't, and because they just don't want to. So my slogan for the next 2 years in all my classes was, "What are you going to say? My microphone doesn't work. Or what are you going to say? Oh, the Wi-Fi is disconnected." So kids were like also developing this kind of this kind of cheating, these different like cheat methodologies to get out of online teaching, having to answer and handing in work. But I spent a lot of time then after my classes doing online, trying to get better and experimenting. And I started to do research into Tartaria first, and then Frisia, then Hyperborea, then Atlantis. And I started to realize that there were some maps of the world that I'd never seen before. And then there were countless maps of the world I'd never seen before. So it wasn't just one or two. After a while, it was literally more maps than I could possibly even look at. And it seemed to start around 1620, 1630. So the early 17th century. All the maps were so different, but familiar at the same time. So imagine you
mm,
see something that you've definitely never seen before, but it is familiar to you. And that's like, it's not deja vu, it's something else. It's something much more powerful. And it just happened to me. It just happened to me a lot. And then I try to connect with other people that it happened with. And I just studied. I just kept studying. Whenever I had free time, I was doing more research. And I didn't create any content until maybe 2023. So that's a good 3 years of just watching videos and just soaking in this endless information, so that
mm,
so that when people comment, or because I was ready for the attack, which was inevitable that people would attack you, I mean, America was amazing. Frisia was amazing. Finding out that dragons existed, finding out that dinosaurs didn't exist and were actually just lizards, and that our timeline had 1,000 years added, and then another 300 years by Pope Gregory, because he wanted to be within a specific period of time for his own, his own personal selfish purposes. And then you start to realize that yes, history is written by the victors, and the truth is usually not kind of shown to anyone. But how do you do that? How do you get the truth out of basically this masquerade, this endless masquerade? And I think the way you do it is you connect with other people who have spent time on certain pieces of research, and after a while you realize that actually the information is easy to find. There are many groups, there are many social media apps, there are many kind of archives that you can visit. Everything is being put online as we speak. There's more information online now than there was 6 months ago and 3 years ago. And now, suddenly, all those years I spent studying the Bible as a Jehovah's Witness, these connections start happening. So you already realize that you have some reference, because reading the Bible and knowing the Bible is very important to any Jehovah's Witness.
mm.
Even though I there were a lot of like family issues that made me realize that maybe that particular faith doesn't really have a right. I mean, there's a lot of problems there. There's a lot of potential issues with creating a hierarchy within any faith or any religion. But the academic knowledge that I got of the Bible, being a Jehovah's Witness for many years, um, gave me this suddenly this expertise that I think is superior to almost everyone I've spoken to. I think I know more about scriptures and biblical texts, and it's a real awakening when you realize that the things you know about Nebuchadnezzar, the things you know about Nephilim, the information that I read for years. I was reading scriptures in front of hundreds of people in congregations regularly
Mm,
about very important events in like Egypt, the seven plagues, the pharaohs, Moses' connection to Egypt, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. I have this incredible knowledge of biblical scripture through that faith. I think I almost viewed it as academic when I was studying the Bible, and now to have this connect constantly to realizing, to being one of the first people, I think, to spearhead this movement into a connection with Jesus Christ, with Mary Magdalene, with how important women actually were at the time, and how Christendom, modern day Christendom, has removed women. Like there's a fear of the woman, almost, but realizing that there's almost like this powerful connection between the Bible and modern day presidents, modern day governments, the symbolism of the architecture when you walk around these ancient buildings, understanding that
mm.
they weren't built by humans, understanding the processes were not mortar and pest and horses and carts weren't carrying these megaliths around.
Yeah.
It is quite fascinating, because suddenly everything that you've taken for granted becomes a lesson, and a very powerful lesson. Like it's been designed to be placed in those positions for you. And then I had these deja vus. The deja vus happened about 2 years ago. Going to certain places, seeing Germanic, European Baroque architecture in East Asia, and then after that, I knew that this is all I wanted to. I just wanted to focus on this every day, and I wanted to try to become an expert at these alternative history theories, and it's just never ending because there's always something new. There's something new almost every day, and it's surprising also about like what you can remember when it is like ancestral memory. I do believe in ancestral memory. Many people
Mm.
don't, but I believe that it's already there. Most of what you learn in your life is actually just memory because your soul is moving into a new, biological kind of electric, body. And then you understand that, yeah, I am quite limited, but I do have enough senses to learn everything that I need to learn here. And
Mm.
it just resonates with people. Do you know what I mean? It just resonates. If you say
Yeah.
something that is right,
Yeah.
and everyone else, every Hollywood movie is scared to say anything that is right.
Mm.
And it's happening right now. The first movie that is decided, Christopher Nolan is creating the Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
And you have, this is one of the most important, this is one of the three intrinsic pedestals of the old world, is Homer's Odyssey. I would say Homer's Odyssey is probably even the most important one. So Homer's Odyssey, Dante's Inferno, the first book, and then the from the Divine Comedy, and Goethe's Faust, the German story about
Mm.
talking to the devil, making a deal with the devil, right? So I mean, to now have that movie being made and have Helena of Troy, who wasn't Trojan, she was a Spartan, and she was taken by Paris to Troy, and she's being played by a black swarthy woman because she actually was black. And people can argue about this, but there are sculptures of her, this mythological queen, this black queen coming out of an egg, being born out of an egg. This is a very ancient, uh, uh, Spartan myth, and she has cornrows. She has cornrows. She has a big nose. She's obviously a black woman.
Mm.
And Christopher Nolan obviously found this out, copied or worked with with an author that also knew this theory. Obviously, we don't really know what she looked like, right? But we
Yeah.
do have connect reasons to believe she might have been black. And that is this is something that's happening. This is going to change the world. Like slowly we're going to realize that a lot of these people from history were not white.
Yeah.
Many were white, but they were not all white. And the ones that
Mm.
weren't white may absolutely blow your mind. And this is connected to Tartaria because Tartar in Arya is the connection between the Aryan and the Tartar. So Tartan comes from the Hebrews. This is the Hebrew 12 tribes we're talking about. So it's the Tartar Aryan connection, the two deities connection. This is like a one world empire that ruled the world, essentially Russia, China, even Eastern Europe.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah. And
interesting.
why have they been hidden? This is the question. Why have the Eurasian empires been hidden from our history? Why? That's the biggest question there is. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a video. You pinned it to your TikTok, I believe, on King Solomon. I
Yes.
found that
Yeah.
quite interesting because he had an incredible
Mm.
life, incredible wisdom, great assets and treasures and land masses. He was, if not the most powerful ruler
Yeah.
um, at that time. Um, but as he got older, things started to go wrong for him, though, didn't they? Um,
Yes.
you
I
know,
mean, are you taking this from biblical as well? Are you taking this from like biblical
yeah,
scripture?
I'm sort
Yeah.
of taking it for a biblical type thing as well. I mean, I understand that he amassed, the treasures and that he amassed, but also um, he advocated the intermarriage of foreign nationals in those days. In those days, which was frowned upon. Because they wanted more of a pure bloodline, if you like, at that time. The Israelites weren't really Israelites were not meant to intermarry, and especially with like pagan nations, as I understand, like the Moabites. Anamites, Edomites, Hittites, warning that these
Hivites.
lances would turn their
Yeah.
hearts away from God, from him,
I think the
Solomon
Jebusites
defied it,
today.
though, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to find out who the Jebusites are today. I think they're the Khazars, and I think they are the modern day
Ah,
Zionists. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, yeah.
um, do you think at the time? Do you think that the land that he had that was part of Tartaria, and he knew that?
Yes. What we're going to find out in the end is that there was a line of Jesus that may have gone through Solomon and one of the 12 tribes, which many people say 13 tribes because they want to add on this 13th tribe, which goes through Esau, who sold his birthright for a bowl of red stew. So this is Isaac, Esau, that story. So when you look at the Rothschilds, that is the Edom, the shield of Edom, the little red bear, the Ursa ring. So the Rothschilds are trying to repurchase their birthright because they have linked their own line to the through the Edomites, yeah, Esau. So Solomon most famously was the king of Israel. So
Mm.
Tartaria is essentially the true Israel. Can you see why it's been
Okay.
hidden? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
mind blowing. I mean, but you have to prove that to yourself. Don't just let me tell you what I think. I mean, listen to me, obviously. Please listen. But people need to be autodidactic, and they have to obviously look into this themselves. But if you hide Tartaria, then you're hiding the true Israel essentially, because
Yeah.
this is the construction of the first temple, which Solomon was able to construct not with human hands, but by the hands of demonic entities that he was able to capture through the lesser keys of Solomon, which is a wonderful piece of a wonderful piece of the puzzle. We are mere mortal humans, so for us to have this
Mm.
information means we cannot be ruled any longer by the elites because we have the truth. We have Tartaria that was given to us to reacquire this balance, the freedom, the argument between God and the devil. That if you give humans freedom, they will turn away from God. That's the argument. If we don't do that, we then become ungovernable, which is obviously considered to be a rebellious thing, but it's actually the whole purpose of why we're here. We're supposed to prove that we won't all turn against God.
Yeah.
So if you take away people's freedom and they can't go outside anymore, then you have nullified that argument. So that's why we are now ascending. That's why we found all of these great esoteric truths. I don't think this level of this high frequency that we're on, where we are working these things out, and it seems to be easy for us to find this information, and even the dawning of AI. I think it's all connected to this. AI, these are ancient frequencies that have always been here. Obviously, the devil and his minions are going to want to curtail and control it, but to some extent, you can't. To some extent, you
Mm.
can't really stop me and you talking to each other, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you lock people in their homes, you are basically threatening the whole construct. The whole matrix is being threatened, and then we have to ascend. So we
Mm.
we we get these great gifts of divine knowledge. Many people don't know. I actually had a severe stammer up until my kind of late teens, and then I started to have to like relearn language, and this has always been an issue for me. So when I found out then that, there are very important people like Saul who became Paul also had a stammer. There were very important people who had these stammers, like they weren't ready to talk. They were supposed to listen. And then
Mm.
and then you get this ability to speak. And there's so many people like that that I've spoken to who just weren't really academic people and have suddenly challenged the entire narrative of
Mm.
academia. If there's a book about history that hasn't mentioned Tartaria, it is beneath us now. I'm talking about Harvard laureates can't hold a
Yeah.
candle to your average online researcher. So they have to be little Tartaria. They have to be little anyone who comes up with a theory. but it's not going to change because the truth is a frequency and people will be attracted to it. So I think this is what
Yeah.
Solomon was. Solomon was the king they couldn't hide. I'm sure they've hidden many other kings like Tamerlane. They pretended Genghis Khan was some crazy psychopath that murdered everyone. That's not true. These were all Christian kings of Tartaria. And they've
Mm.
all been belittled and removed in certain ways. Like Marco Polo went there. He wrote books about Tartary. He wore their clothes. He illustrated their sigils, their war banners. We
Mm.
have hundreds of maps now. Where did they all come from? These are not like forgeries. They have too much information. I
Yeah,
mean,
there
they
is a
tell
lot.
us.
There is a lot. There is a fair bit of legacy documentation in the way of maps, which people can't fully understand. My
Yeah,
only my
yeah.
only thing with Solomon, King Solomon, is he later on in years he decided to, through they say a lot of times it's his wives which persuaded him, but or influenced him to abandon the worship of God and worship altars for pagan deities, including Ashtaroth, Milcom or Molech,
Mm.
um, Chemosh, uh, and that is quite well documented that he decided to, and we all know what Molech anyway. That he's not a particularly nice pagan deity at the best of times. He's the one that requires sacrifice, usually of younger people. So that's the only thing that worries me. It seems to be kind of it's never really a happy ending when they turn away from uh, you know um, God's teachings, and it never really ends very well. And his land was divided up into uh, Israel and I think in the south Judea. Or north is Judea and Israel was the south, wasn't it? So it was sort of like divided up. But yeah, it just bothered me a little bit with King Solomon for all his, how splendid his life was, and well, he was a great king, but it just like sort of ended pretty badly, really, for that. As for the maps, yeah, the Piri map, that's a very quite a special map that hasn't fully been explained. Your sound, I think what it is, I think your sound's coming through and giving feedback, Charles.
Okay. Let me try to. Yeah, yeah. This can
Yeah,
happen because I'm on a wireless mic and
yeah,
is
that's
it
fine. That
okay?
seems a bit better now. That seems a bit better. But yeah, I mean, we're here really to understand, about your referencing your work. I'm very interested in history, extremely interested. And one of the things I wanted to ask, you stated that America is the true Africa and the location of the biblical Garden of Eden, pointing specifically to Florida's four-headed river system. Um, Charles, how do you
Yeah.
reconcile this with the overwhelming archaeological and genetic consensus that points to the Middle East and modern day Africa as the cradle of civilization?
Oh yes. No. I think that there are valid arguments to support both theories. Like, is America Africa, or is it actually is everything fine, and is there any reason to kind of go into it? Now, for me, as I have continued my research, I have found more proof of this. I found carved marble eggs that were discovered in the Grand Canyon. I found the seven cities that I've been looking for a long time. One of the first people to discover those, the seven cities, and the locations in the Grand Canyon. The seven cities of gold. These are mythological cities that are also biblical cities. They're also connected to Solomon. Um, the Grand Canyon is a giant mine, a giant excavation project. that happened long before recorded history of the United States and the columns or Columbus finding the United States. My description of history is very hard to cover within a short period of time because there are so many connected parts to it. But it is becoming stronger, almost to the point where I know somebody knows the truth, and they're kind of just waiting for us to work it out, and then they'll pretend that everyone
Mm.
already knew about it. So it's nice to have these podcasts where it's recorded because it's a gradual. I'm finding the proof gradually. I found the Minoan bulls. I found the temples. I found shrines
Mm.
within old movies that they decided to film to save money within the Grand Canyon. There are many old movies that they will never be able to remove them all. There are very prominent movies too, where suddenly the British government comes in and pays the whole production crew to move to Pinewood to refilm everything. One of the only reasons why Elizabeth Taylor, for example, was paid such an astronomical amount of money to be Cleopatra is not because that was the deal at the start. That wasn't her first contract. That contract happened later because the European powers who own America, even to this day, don't want any truth to come out. So they were actually filming that movie partly in an excavated Egyptian temple. And I'm not really trying to prove that the Egypt in Africa isn't real or that was constructed, because everyone knows it was constructed. Everyone knows the temples in Egypt were all constructed. They even tell you that all of this
Mm.
was moved from another place. They tell you
Yeah.
that. They just don't tell you where it was from. They pretend it was flooded. No temple in Egypt was flooded and then relocated. Those temples have been there for thousands of years. They don't just suddenly flood in the 1930s and have to be removed and relocated. We're talking here about
Mm.
a civilization that goes back further than even the Roman Empire, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
going back to Hindustan. Hindustan is the only, maybe Babylon. These are the only two empires, and Assyria that we can really say were that we have proof of. There are many theories on Atlantis, but there's only like a handful of actual physical, concrete proofs that there was an Atlantis. Whereas I have over 130, 140 different pieces of evidence that prove. Obviously, this is not all my work. There are many books that have been written on the topic that the true Egypt, the true Kemet, was in America. But it goes much further than that because
Mm.
you have the hieroglyphs, you have the people who are posting information all the time in the Grand Canyon that are still able to explore because they have a pilot's license or whatever. There are
Mm.
all kinds of caves. There are documented Smithsonian exhibitions that prove my theory. And it's not just my theory, obviously, many people have this theory,
Mm.
that they found many sarcophagi, many staffs, many golden staffs, many like subterranean tunnels that have hieroglyphs. And I have a lot of examples of those. And I also have that the bull. The bull has actually been covered in a TV show. That there was a large sculpture of an Egyptian bull found in the United States. It's ancient. It's authentic. It's been very well documented. And then obviously we have other connections, not just the four-headed river system, but we also have the history of the Nile, the different plagues and how those happened, how those can be scientifically explained
Uh-huh.
using the Mississippi as a model as opposed to Egypt. And then, I mean, there are so many other connections with cities, just large, ancient Moorish cities that help you understand that even the Moorish Empire was relocated to North America about
Mm.
230 years ago.
Yeah.
But we need to understand the history of the United States. This is very important because our current history is pretty much falsified. Yeah.
Mm. That's one thing I was going to bring up. You bringing up the Moors. I understand the Moors. This is all like the I understand about them, a medieval Muslim population, primarily based in North Africa and the Iberian Peninsula, modern day Spain or Portugal, I think nowadays. Rather, they were an influential multi-ethnic civilization. They were quite diverse, African, Arab roots. Their empire extended, never really went as far as Russia, as far as I understand. Their rule in Europe lasted between 711 AD and 1492 AD. They left a lot of architecture, science, and culture behind, but that's the only Moors I knew of. What Moors were you thinking of?
Yes. So the Moors went far outside of that written history. The reason why we have the Moors down from 711 to 1492 or 1493 is partly because that is the piece of history where we have these universities opening up, water irrigation being introduced to European cities, and the first orangeries or fruit gardens. Now, you have to include Spain because Spain was essentially part of Africa, but there wasn't a modern day Spain. There were smaller principalities like Al-Andalus and Cordoba, and the Umayyad built this Iberian Peninsula, which, as far as they're concerned, is part of Africa. They don't think of Spain as even a country back then. So they defeat the Visigoth army, then they keep moving north, but Portugal, if we go to Portugal today, there are so many Moorish palaces and high arches and domes, and even inside the architecture you see the Arabic script. So you can't place those within any other history bracket. Then you have these conquests that were based in the first colony of the Moors, and then they were pushing up north into Poitiers and Toulouse around 718. Now, then we have this narrative that they didn't go any further, and I think that's when you get that's when the lies start. That's when you start getting this fake history where they were pushed back down. They weren't really a proper empire. But even to have someone to have a historian admit that they conquered Europe, conquered Spain, conquered Portugal, conquered parts of France, is a big step forward, because that's not something that we were taught at school. Yeah, so that's always been kept away from us. So you have to link the Moors to the Normans to kind of get the next step of actual factual history that has been hidden from us. So I don't know if you have that image. There's an image of the Normans
I'm
that
gonna start bringing up some, because I've got a lot of images. I've got a lot. Thank you very much. A lot of images.
Yes.
I just want to say, you're quite right. I like these podcasts. Do you know why I like these podcasts? Because it's kind of like one of the last vestiges of relatively free speech.
Right.
You won't get a conversation like this on TV. It just won't.
No.
It's not going to happen, is it? Because it's people's choice whether they want to watch, whether they don't want to watch. That's totally up to them. But with TV, it's kind of curated for a mass. So it's like kind of toned down. It's made more palatable, and so it waters out everything. It waters down everything, I should say. And also, do you know what? I like this podcast because of the production value I see. And I see a lot of production value in a lot of guests, including myself. As you can see, no expense spared, Charles. And I did notice when you first came on, your screen went down.
It did. The screen is not. Yeah. It doesn't always behave.
Make me chuckle. It did make me chuckle. I thought, at least it's not just me having a bad day. That's good. Right, I'm going to bring up first and foremost, you've got a very interesting Facebook. I'm going to bring up your Facebook so people know where they can go to get you. Okay. This is your Facebook. So people go along and follow, please, because he's got a lot of. It's a lovely flower.
Yeah.
He's got an awful lot of material in here. Stop that. Got to stop that, otherwise
That's the music.
I'll get.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they're really hot on music. So yeah, I've got pictures of that we're going to put up. So yeah, people, this is his Facebook. So check that one out. Charles Ross, just put that in. And also, I'm going to put up you've got, if I'm right, you've got a YouTube as well. I'm going to put this up, Charles.
Oh, thank you.
No, by all means, it's here we go. Just so people know. Bingo Bango, Teacher Charles TV. So,
Yes, awesome. Thank you.
people, honestly, go up, show some love. Subscribe. I have. Just if you don't, if even if you don't believe that there is a hidden history, or there isn't stuff that is hidden from us. Least people can do, I always think, is just give it a good shake of the tail and have a look for yourself. Just go through some of the content and have a little look. I personally, and some of it I do think is there's so much corroboration of evidence that I think I find it very hard not to believe. Some of it, I think, ooh, no, I'm not so sure. So I kind of I'm honest. I swing,
Be careful.
both ways that way, but that's a good thing, isn't it, Charles? That's a good thing,
No, I mean you have to. Yeah, you have to be open-minded. If you're not open-minded, then this is probably not going to. This is probably not going to be very helpful to you. It's just probably going to annoy you. But if you're open-minded, and I find that people are starting to realize that something's wrong here with our recorded history, and yeah, I mean it's just reawakening your kind of intuition, realizing that you're a lot more powerful than you think you are. And even though you might have not had like much academic education, or even if you have had academic education, if you can handle it, if you can handle finding out that you've been miseducated, sometimes it's better to maybe have less education in history before you start studying it yourself, so that you don't have all of those kind of brainwashing sort of narratives.
That takes us back to
Yeah.
children. That takes us back to
Yeah.
kids. Kids make some of the best witnesses, and the reason they make some of the best witnesses is because what they see, they repeat. What they
Yeah.
see, they tell. They're not indoctrinated by. They don't alter any facts because
Yeah.
they're not indoctrinated by any other narrative to a story to piecemeal together to fill in the gaps of what they've witnessed, which adults tend to do. Oh, did you see that dog man? Well, actually, yeah, I did. It was like standing up on two legs, and then they'll naturally, a lot of times, they'll fill in gaps by movies they've watched, or by documentaries they've watched, and they'll use those to fill in the gaps they can't quite remember, or to elaborate, and not on purpose, but then it will naturally try and make sense. We would try and make sense of a shape of a cloud into something that we find familiar. You've also got a TikTok account. I'm going to put that up for people as well, because if you are below my age, you're probably going to be on TikTok. Let's have a look. And here we go. Oh, hang on a minute. Okay, that's that. Crescent moon. Here we go. Here's the account. Teacher Charles Taiwan, Charles Ross. So check him out on TikTok and have a little look, because it's well worth it. He's got a lot of material. My word, he's got a lot of material. So that's like fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, that's good. Have a little look at that. Right. If you're watching this, I'm going to mention something now. If you're on a plane, all right, and you're holidaying somewhere and you're mid-flight watching this, don't be too concerned. all right, because the plane's still flying. All right, it's still up there. It's still, still going. You mentioned that the planes don't run on aviation fuel. Um, now,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. Now that I kind of like had to bring up because I was like, that's like something quite incredible, quite a bold
Yeah.
claim. A
No,
very
it's probably one of the greatest awakenings, yeah, for me of the year. I mean, it took a lot of research because I am very critical of my own theories, and I think that's why in the end I rarely change my mind once I've come to a conclusion. And as crazy as this is going to sound to people, our your jumbo jet or your airliner, um, uh, especially the Boeing 747, these very famous aircraft, are using Vermanas. Vermanas are ancient Indian. Um, uh, Essentially, they are etheric harnessing devices that were able to fly like large buildings. They look like buildings. Now, this technology was introduced by the German Luftwaffe in World War II within our modern narrative. I believe that these were very large devices that were able to travel around the world, and I found at least one that may have crashed into the side of a mountain and is still there, but nobody knows what it is. Um, I know other people that have found them too. Now, how does an ancient Indian temple in India, in Pakistan, in Hindustan, how do these relate to our modern jet engine? Well, the modern jet engine is only really allowed to, or the blueprints for it, the specs for it are only allowed to be utilized and manufactured by three companies. Like Lockheed Martin is one of those, BlackRock, the companies, and that was a really interesting thing because I would have thought that much like the car engine or the combustion engine or any other incredible achievement, the like even microchips are a great achievement, right, for mankind. Great step forward in technological prowess and power. But for some reason, the jet engine is only, or the blueprints for that are only controlled by like three or four companies, and these are all government-owned companies. So, um, what is the Vimana? Well, the Vimana is an ancient, very finely designed uh, uh, sort of vortex creation. It creates a vortex. It's a structure that creates a vortex, much like insects do, especially the wing casings of insects. They create that vortex too, but on a very large scale, multiple vortexes are created by these Vimana temples, and that is what's been created by a type of very fine metal that is grown almost in petri dishes. It's a chemical kind of metal. It's a crystal compound essentially that is being used to create fine metallic fanning turbines that are almost like the size of like bird wings. Now, um, you need about 191.43 tons of fuel to fly an airplane using these jets that are placed on both wings, and then you are going to have to pump, I think, about 63,000 gallons uh, uh, over a period of maybe 16, 17 hours. And I'm talking here about those international long haul flights between, China and Europe, those kind of flights, because the plane isn't landing halfway through those flights. Um, if the plane landed halfway through those flights and had gigantic sort of jet fuel silos hooked up to it, then I would say, okay, this is obviously jet fuel going into the actual engine. But that doesn't happen. In fact, even when the jet fuel is being pumped into the plane before takeoff, you would need to, okay, to get around, I don't know, 230, 240 liters, 240,000 liters, sorry, into the plane, you would have to have multiple trucks, like at least maybe half a dozen trucks would have to be lining up next to the plane to fill it up. But there isn't any space anyway. So even if that was happening, there isn't any space within the airplane to house sufficient fuel for that length of flight. If in fact, the jet propulsion and engines, these jet engines at the side, are using fuel. So if they are using fuel the way they do at takeoff, which is when they use fuel, later on, once they're in the air, they are not using fuel. They are using an element that was removed from the periodic table in the 1920s, 1924. It was removed from the periodic table, and this element is ether. So ether, or etheric energy, is very important to understanding how the architecture of the old world buildings that have obviously also reverse engineered that technology from ancient Hindustan. Then you understand obviously more about the pyramids, how they were drawing water out of the ground in these kind of drier climates. Then you understand why the pyramids were covered in like silver or piezoelectric metals. And then you also understand why there was a crystal capstone. So yeah, I mean, I've sketched it out. I've also done like AI infographics on this particular topic, just to kind of double, quadruple check my numbers. And I come out with the same result every time. I have a beautiful image, which I did with AI, just showing exactly how many gallons are needed from a long haul flight from Beijing to London. And the silo dwarfs the jet engine next to it. The silo with all the fuel that you would need absolutely dwarfs the jet plane next to it. Now they are arguing, of course. There have been people attacking me that are no doubt working for like Lockheed Martin or Pan Am or or maybe even Boeing. I don't know, but they're very worried about this coming out. I'm not the only one talking about it. There are other people obviously now talking about it, but they are attacking, and they are saying that the fuel is in the wings. The fuel is in the wings. I hear this narrative all the time that there's gallons, hundreds, if not thousands of gallons sloshing around in the wings. Now that doesn't work when you look at the plane that they flew and then removed from our narrative, which is the Concorde. Do you remember that plane?
Yeah.
Now the Concorde, the
Mm.
only reason why the Concorde was erased from our history, from our narrative, is because none of that information works. And it's all very quiet now. It's very quiet on the Western Front, as it were, because this information is out now. And you can now talk about the jet engine as a very magical proof, this magical, beautiful proof of not only etheric energy, but also Albert Einstein's photoelectric effect. I'm now going deeper into how airships were powered in the past, like the ancient dirigibles, the Zeppelins, the Hindenburgs. They were all powered in the same way. The German Empire, the Thule Society, worshipped this ancient bell called Die Glocke, and this was using cymatic frequencies. So the vortex, the etheric energy, the cymatic frequencies, the idea of standing in a bell to recalibrate your own energy, the idea of Die Glocke, which is this like UFO that can fly, which is we don't have much information about this, but I think that's how the German World War II empire came up with the first jet engine. And if you look into the speed of the Messerschmitt 262, the first jet engine fighter that ever existed in the history of the human race, look into the Messerschmitt 262, then compare it to the other planes that were used in World War II in the early 1940s. right? Which I've done, so I can give you some information about that. It was going 3 times the speed. It was going higher altitude. It could carry like 2 heavy duty machine guns on each wing because of that. While the Spitfire was still a propeller plane up until the 1950, 1945. Have you heard of the Spitfire?
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
Propeller plane. The British Empire, it took them, along with the Canadian Empire, I think, it took them over a year to take down the first Messerschmitt. I don't know what was going on throughout the whole of 1944, but they were flying around with these jet engines and no one knew what it was. They didn't know why this plane was going twice as fast, 3 times as fast. I mean, even the altitude the plane was able to go was, I mean, this is where you get these theories about this Aryan race in the North Pole, past past the ice wall. There's another. Maybe there is a Hyperborea. Maybe there is a Thule society for a reason, because they're worshiping this one technology, this ancient Hindustan reverse engineered, architecture of the first vortexes. The early vortexes. And yes, of course, people are believing that the Nazis were designing all kinds of things. They didn't stop with the Messerschmitt. They were designing all kinds of crazy
Yeah. Oh no, they were.
shit.
No, they were. I mean, what I wanted to ask was quite simply, why would the incredibly profitable, profit-driven aviation industry spend billions manufacturing and refining and transporting fuel if it's completely unnecessary, Charles?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a very important question. Many people don't think about that part of it. That part of it is all about money, money, money. They're trying to make money. They're trying to charge you for something. Why don't we have cars that pull energy out of the air? I can show you a picture of one. They had these cars in the 1800s already that were literally pulling static electricity out of the air. They had an anode and a cathode each side. It's mind-boggling that this already existed. It's like the future is the past. It's very strange. It's the whole idea of timelines doesn't make sense because it's all circular. It's
Mm.
like we've been there. We
I
had
went
them.
to I went to a museum, and it's the motorcycle museum near where was it? Near Coventry. Great place. If you're a bit of a petrol head like me and you love motorbikes, then check it out, take a look. Anyway, when you go round, you see late 1800s, 1900s, sorry, scooters. We're talking the electric scooters that kids are
Yeah,
on now and people use. Electric scooters with the drive wheel at the front.
yeah,
You have motorcycles there, which now would be state of the art because they're electric motorcycles. Electric motorcycles
yeah.
there, and
It's
we're
absolutely
talking
crazy.
over
Yeah,
100 years ago.
100.
I,
Yeah,
I know, and you think, well, okay, that's the technology they had then was absolutely incredible, and then there's a small space of time, a space of maybe about 50, 60 years where there was a lull. There was a lull in technology, and then it's almost like an iteration of this technology from years ago just popped up recently again. So now we're having electric cars, we're having electric motorcycles, we're having electric scooters are being used when they were around over 100 years ago. And you think, well, there was the decades and decades of a lull in technology where nothing really very much happened, and it was like a fossil fuel consuming society. And it's now only now it's kind of the iteration of the old technologies come to the forefront.
yes, yeah. I think that the reason for this is because a lot. I'm gonna have to move, I think.
Yeah, you're a bit echoey when I talk. Oh, that's better. That's better. I think that's better now. Your mic, your microphone. No, it's all right. No worries. No worries. It'll get there. It'll get there. These things happen. It's you know, cock up factor. That's no worries. All right, let's have a look. Oh, hang on. Well, your microphone is set to off. Let's see if I can turn it on again. Oh, yeah. You've muted the microphone on there. Yeah, I think I'm gonna start getting the chalkboard for this show. I think a chalkboard might work. Yeah. So basically, I think you've muted. Now we can see your right. So
Sorry.
let's check your microphone. Just say, Phil, your podcast is the best I've ever been on.
Your podcast is incredible.
There we go. That's fine.
Been on
You have to
many,
get
but
you
this
loud
one
and
will
clear.
never be forgotten.
Clip that. Want to clip that, StreamYard?
Awesome. Yeah, sorry, that's a bit worrying. I didn't want to give you any stress. I do apologize.
No, I don't stress. I don't stress. I've had my CBD oil, so I'm all right.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So right, okay. Now, right. So the aviation thing, that's really interesting. Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, it's a very good one because I think I mean people will have their mind blown as I did when I first started looking into it. Yeah, it's one of those things that's like always going to, I think, blow people's minds to some extent.
I mean, the only thing I would say, I flew back from the States once. Okay, Charles. And for some reason, it kind of like the plane, and it always mystifies me. The plane left Atlanta Airport, and then it kind of goes round in a big arc over Alaska, if you like, or towards Alaska, and then before going to UK, went to Germany. And then I had to change to get a smaller plane from Germany through to the UK. Anyway, when I got onto the German plane, it was ever so funny. Couldn't understand the pilot because obviously he was speaking German, so I couldn't understand that. And halfway through the flight, when we're coming into the UK, into Heathrow, everyone started to get a bit fidgety. Everyone in the seat started to look a little bit worried. And there was on the tannoy, the pilot, and he was kind of like quite excited. I kind of like thought, oh, what's going on here then? Something's up. Everyone was kind of like taking a crash position, if you like. I was absolute ignorance is very much bliss. I had no clue what was going on. And then finally, when it landed, boy, it was really bumpy. But then you heard the engines reverse when it came in. You heard them kind of like, as they do, the fins on the engines are sort of like they stop and kind of like slow up, if you like, to create drag. And everyone, this is the most disconcerting part. As soon as it bumpy landing, as soon as it landed, everyone was like, hey, yes, yeah, and I was looking around thinking, oh, well, I probably could have died there. I would not have a clue. But if the plane wasn't using fuel, then how come I see as we're going along, I actually see the fuel entering, before flight, I see the fuel entering into the wings, into the tanks. And when it was landing, I could see out the window. Lucky the plane engine didn't fall off, but would have made a good video. But I could see the fuel kind of. There was a problem because I could see the vapors of the fuel coming out the back of the engine. There was obviously something wrong.
Okay.
So in that case, what is it actually using? What the fuel must be, because it's loaded, it's pumped on. It's actually pumped on to the plane.
Right.
You can see it being pumped on. My uncle, okay, he flew for the Royal Indian Air Force. And so it was the British Air Force, part of the British Air Force, but he flew for it, and he was a squadron leader. Then, because of later on, he left the Royal Indian Air Force and he started flying for the civil aviation. And he flew a lot of flights to the States and from the UK, because he lived in the UK back then, and then flew to the States and back. What would you say? Now, he's gone now, he's passed on, bless his heart, rest in peace. But he never mentioned anything about, I used to ask him as a kid quite a lot of questions. And some of the questions I used to ask him was, did you see anything when you were in the sky? Did you see any UFOs and stuff like that? But he never mentioned once about either in his Royal Indian Air Force days or in the commercial flying about any other form of fuel other than aviation fuel. Do you think pilots are aware of this etheric energy that's used? Do you think they're aware of it or not?
I don't think you need to tell the pilot what they're flying on. The pilots are concerned really only about three things. They're concerned about takeoff and landing. What happens in between is really just keeping the plane level and communicating with various control towers, right? You are not like, this is the thing. It's like the train driver, for example, isn't really too concerned about whether the seats are tidy or whether even any of the staff on the train are dealing with difficult customers. So it's kind of like that. It's the pilot really is just in the cockpit dealing with what is mostly like an automated, pretty kind of difficult to control. I'm not trying to take anything away from the academic side of being a pilot, but a lot of this is automated and controlled. And there's a co-pilot who may know more than the actual pilot himself, is my theory. I think the co-pilot would be sworn into definitely some kind of really kind of esoteric network of people throughout the world, because I don't think the pilot knows as much as the co-pilot. I think the co-pilots see, this is the this presumption we have that the co-pilot is a pilot learning to be a pilot, but actually the co-pilot probably is going to know more than the pilot about how every plane works, and they're sworn into secrecy, much like an astronaut or an oil rig worker or a submarine commander. These people are sworn into. Even police officers are sworn into certain ilks and cults and societies. So it's like some of this is, yeah. I mean, can you prove this theory, and can you kind of like prove to the world that you understand something that the average human being doesn't? I suppose you could, but if you have a pilot job and you are almost like endangering your career. I don't think you're going to go into those directions, right? You're not going to say, oh, the amount of fuel that's pumped into the right wing and the left wing is not enough to fly from London to Paris, let alone London to Beijing. So
Mm.
yeah, I think a lot of this you aren't going to want to look at. And I think it's the same with like even astronauts. I think some of them, they have certain missions and they go on those missions. They don't know if they're leaving orbit. They don't really know where they are sometimes, and
Yeah.
I yeah.
Mm.
And if
I
you
think,
if you pigeonhole everyone and like almost like keep their job very minimal, and then have agents throughout making sure that they don't cross into the next kind
yeah,
of
I,
field. Yeah.
I think, I'll tell you what, Charles, I think probably more so a fact that they, like with the co-pilot and like with astronauts and with pilots, both in the forces and commercial. I think a lot of times they probably don't get them to sign any waivers, or they don't give them any secrets. I think if they did, someone down the line is going to blow the whistle. It's just human
Yeah.
nature. It's just human
Right.
nature. But I think I do agree with you when the reporting. Now, when a pilot is, and I know for a fact, when a pilot sees something which is anomalous in the sky, he's only really got one avenue to go down in the reporting of that. He can't go straight away to the newspapers because he's representing the airline. Um, so I think it's the reporting which is censored because they have to report it to CAA, Civil Aviation Authority in the UK, say. And I think that is at the point, that's the point where the censorship happens. That's the point where it's skipped over, where there is this shroud of silence comes up. I think it's at that point, probably not so much a case of when they're being trained. All part of the training is, you can't mention this or you can't mention that. I don't think that would work because human nature is a fickle thing, and we can't help but we just spill the beans. We're so good at it. We're just like, it comes out eventually. Everyone is just like, oh, but yeah, actually, yeah, I do know this that you don't know. And that just happens that way. But I think you're on the right track there. I do. I think that there's things which they don't tell the pilots a lot of times. And I think there's on the right track entirely about the reporting system. Which is being dealt with at the moment with the Congressional Committee. They want reporting, especially with the military, to be freed up. They want it to be more transparent, which is a good thing because before, I mean, that's a case in point. They brought it up in the Congressional Committee on the UAPs that there wasn't the transparency of reporting being able to be used, because it was all censored. So I think that also goes part and parcel with commercial flights. That goes with train drivers. I know for a fact I got contacted some time back by a train driver that saw let's put it, a dogman entity. But of course, it was reported. He had to report it to the authorities, who govern the trains so he went into some detail about that. So it happens there as well with all these things. I wanted this show to run for an hour and a half, but are you okay to carry on for another, say, 30 minutes? Because we have got a bit to cover. Shall I go to the sentient points, the main points I wanted to ask, which is, I think, what people would really like to get to grips with. In my thumbnails I did, it's a little bit clickbaity because there's something which I found fascinating, and that is you challenge the fundamental biological teaching that the heart is a pump, Charles, arguing instead that it is a Gordian knot generator producing 100,000 watts of power. So my question is to that. I've thought about it. If the heart isn't pumping blood, what exact physical mechanism is moving the blood through the massive complexity of our vascular system?
Right. This is probably this is my my best my most memorable theory so far, or finding, and it really isn't sort of like a fully sort of evolved theory, but I am standing on the pedestal of three different doctors and philosophers going all the way back to ancient Rome, and Norway, and one great physicist and biologist there. People who have already gone into this with a lifetime of research behind them, and so I'm very confident that this theory is in fact the accurate way that the human body functions. I'm not just kind of overconfident about everything I say. So, with that in mind, I am always looking for the truth. That's what it's about. I don't just research the human body and then move on to jet engines. This is all over years of research where I've come up with these theories and trying to kind of almost rewrites everything.
Yeah. And
It's just
I
because
don't mean
that's
to, I don't mean
yeah.
to, because it's like time limited. I would love to talk
Yes.
to you
Okay.
all
I
night. I
can't
would
go
love
into
to
too
talk.
much detail.
Oh,
Yeah. I
yeah,
would
yeah, yeah.
love to, but I
No, no, no,
can't.
no,
Yeah.
no. It's not that. No,
Yeah.
I know, I understand that what I'm doing is jumping from one thing to another. I didn't usually like firing. I don't usually like bringing up questions,
Mm.
like this. But I know I wanted to get to grips first of all and spend a little bit of time talking to you initially on this podcast, just to find out who the man Charles Ross was, his
Yeah.
background, and how he got interested. So that's what sort of that took up a little bit of time, which is fine. That's what we wanted, what I wanted, because I like to know the person, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I
So
understand that. Yeah.
we'll have to come. We'll have to do it again. Definitely, we'll have to do it again. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the only
We should.
reason why I don't mean to be rude. Like not having you up, I'm not. All I'm doing is like just bringing up the quintessential pertinent questions, which, if you like, the most um, kind of are open to debate questions. Do you see what I mean? The ones
Yeah,
which
no,
are kind of
everything that you're yeah with the introduction and everything you're
yeah,
doing is exactly what I would obviously want you ideally to do, which is create this. I mean, give people a little bit of taste of like certain topics, and then as time goes on, revisit them in more detail.
yeah,
Which is
lovely. Mm.
which is crucial. A lot of people, though, I find online sometimes forget that we are trying to pack into like an hour or two, literally like months of research with so many different side quests that you can get
Impossible.
distracted. It's very hard,
Impossible. Yeah.
but it is
Mm.
fascinating and it's entertaining, and it's definitely more useful than watching, the Avengers or something,
Oh,
or some
yeah,
Hollywood trash
absolutely.
movie, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, as so for me, there was a researcher in the 1950s who absolutely was fascinating, because he proved that the heart is actually a coil. It is not a pump that is pumping blood through your body, and he explained it very well in various papers he published. But it's the 1950s, so obviously the gentleman in question is not with us anymore. But it is funny how it is connected to like the Schrödinger wave equation, the function of using copper coils to generate electricity, piezoelectric, which is basically like a basalt and granite friction through natural movement of creating
Mm.
electricity with pressure from crystals, and this electrical and particles, if they are put in the right environment, creating natural electric energy. Now, electricity is everywhere around us, so why wouldn't it be in our body? And when you think about the emergency services using defibrillators to bring someone back to life, when they have to do something that they cannot hide in any way, shape, or form, it does become electrical pads, adding gelatin to create that electrical uh, uh,
Conductivity.
conductivity. Yeah, that's the word. Thanks. And you are actually isolating the heart at that time. Now, then you also have pacemakers that are isolating electrical currents. So there is so much already there for us to look at to give us the starting point. But how do we get from the heart pumping, pushing blood through capillaries, like minute, almost like microscopic arteries and veins? Well, that
Mm.
doesn't make sense that it's pushing. How big would your heart have to be to push blood into your muscles so that your heart would then beat faster, essentially pushing more blood into your muscles? When you're scared, for example, or you have that like flight or fight reflex happening, it doesn't make sense because by the time that the blood has been pumped into your muscles, it's too late. You haven't really achieved anything. So you need instantaneous power in your muscles in order for a woman, which has been documented, women pushing and getting incredible amounts of strength within milliseconds to save their children. So there was an example of a child falling into a zoo in China. and there was like a lion there. This woman pushes the lion away. This incredible strength, jumps back over the thing. That there was a man in Worcestershire fell into some hot vat of um, I'm thinking Worcestershire sauce, but I'm not 100% sure what the company was. But he fell into this vat of some boiling kind of sauce that they were like this industrial vat, and he jumped out like 10 meters out of the, like if anyone could do that without that immediate sense of adrenaline going through your body because you're about to maybe die, where does that power come from? Because that's not all, is that always there? Is that
Mm.
power always there? And this was my starting point. Then I looked into the study of the 1950s, where this doctor was inviting people to come to Norway to look at his findings, and he was unraveling cow hearts, human hearts, all kinds of mammals, mammalian heart tissue, and basically he just unwound them, and there was this long kind of what he termed, this is his phrase, he coined the phrase Gordian knot, which is this spiral that is contracting and expanding and generating electricity. So the force inside our body, according to I'll try and get his name actually, according to his theory, is that electricity is what's actually life. That's actually the life force of the human body. That we are these kind of salt batteries, if you like, generating electricity, and the heart is generating about a watt per heartbeat. The heart beats around 100,000 times a day, which is an incredible amount. But that amount of electricity would then explain some of these internal combustion stories
Mm.
that you have in China when these monks were like channeling large amounts of energy. That is the only documented case where the monks are outside these temples during the communist revolution in China, and then they gave up after a while, taking these temples down. These monks were sent in to internally combust in front of the temples. They weren't setting themselves on fire. People, because by the time they try to set themselves on fire, the communist guards are taking them away from the front of the Buddhist and Taoist temples, saying, "No, no, we're not going to let you put petrol on the floor." They
Mm.
never had time. They didn't need the time to put puddles of petrol on the floor, and I think it's called emulate themselves, right? Set themselves on fire. They were
Mm.
they were channeling this chi energy. This is like this is very much hidden. This is not mainstream history. But there are so many videos, even horrific videos, of these monks just setting themselves on fire and outside temples. That's what we're told. But actually, it's combustion, it's chi energy, it's training something that we all have. That's what makes the human being so dangerous. That we kind of, because of that power, I think that's, if you understand that you have this invisible body part, this aura. Some civilizations call it aura. Some people, the Chinese call it chi energy. I call it etheric energy.
Mm.
We have this within us. When you know someone's looking at you from behind, and what makes the hair kind of turn up, the hair
Yeah.
is like going up on the back of my neck, that kind of thing. But when you look around and someone's staring at you, how do you know that person's staring at you? Well, they're manipulating that energy field, and you
Mm.
actually have a really powerful
Well,
one, and
there
animals
is
do
a
too. Cats and
yeah.
dogs are
There
very
is a
powerful. Yeah.
it is. It's called scopasepia when you believe
Oh,
someone's watching you. And
yeah, yeah.
so much so, I cite the case of when you're in the forces and say you're going to ambush somebody,
Mm.
and people are walking by down the path, and they're just feet from you, and you're hidden. um, you're trained not to look at them. You're trained to look at the floor, because if you look at them walking
Right.
past down the path, they will know you're there and look back. So scopasepia
Why?
is a thing.
Why?
Mm,
What's the physical? What's the
yeah,
scientific explanation for that? You see, and I think I
but
have that explanation to some extent.
to go back to my question, if the heart isn't pumping blood, what exact physical mechanism is moving the blood through the massive complexity of veins and vascular system?
That is electricity. Electricity moves blood. Do you know that electricity was generated underneath some of the largest like ancient cities? These energy centers. like Peking, which used to be called Tartar City. This has water flowing, but it's unnecessarily elaborate. It's not like the Moors using springs to create fountains in every city and every train station, every temple, right? It's not
mm,
that. It's much more sophisticated. There are two types of water on Earth. There is this magnetic water and there is the electric water. And if those two meet, you can call it black and white, yin and yang, right?
mm,
Anode, cathode. If those types of water meet, they create electricity. That's how you get the Hanging Gardens of Babylon moving water up spirals. You can put a copper spiral into a waterfall or even pour water out of a tap, and it will move up
mm,
instead of down. This is this is this is the
mm.
geometry of our realm. This is electric coming from the sky, magnetic coming from the earth. This is why rainwater falls and water in the oceans is evaporating. It's the salt crystals within the seawater that causes it to then evaporate. So this is electric
Chris,
and magnetic. And you can explain everything on earth with that one theory. Electric in the firmament, magnetic on the terraformer. So you have magnetic, electric, and in between you have these etheric sparks. This cloud, what we call cloud cover. This is the lightning moving back up to rebalance, recalibrate. This is why we have arches, because they're large magnets. If you look at an old world building, you have an arch every single building you go into.
mm.
That
I
is the
mean,
magnet. That is the
it's
that is the
it,
positive, negative. That is your body. You have
so
one positive, one negative hand. That's why you shake with your right hand.